Yes, the 2022 season is still months away. But does that mean we can't talk about who the best players on Georgia's team are going to be? We don't think so. So that's exactly what we're going to do today on Locked On Bulldogs.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Everybody,
What is
welcome.
up?
Locked On Bulldogs here. He is Daniel. I am Clint. Glad you're with us. All things best players for the upcoming season. Gave you a little hint of that, talking about Stetson Bennett. We do have the quarterback on our roster currently to take us to the promised land once more, as we already know because he's already done so.
Everyone agrees with that, Clint.
Everyone agrees.
What
By
we
the way,
learned from the comments is that everyone agrees.
By the way, the moment you tell me Clemson and Notre Dame are two of the top 4 teams in college football, you have invalidated yourself, not just from college football, but from literally every argument that you ever want to have with me again in your life. Until that point, stop, Billy. No. Hey, Twitter's right there, Dawgs Podcast. Hit us up on Gmail or the message. We have voicemail over on the description. You could find that. Follow us wherever you listen to audio. Like, subscribe, hit that bell, get that notification. We are here. This is Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast and Locked On Atlanta, your team every day. We'll be here throughout the entire offseason as we always are. Summer's coming, dead time's coming, all that's coming, but there are still things moving, and we will be talking about them because we are jonesing for college football.
That's right. We're gonna put out Justin be tweeting. He'd be tweeting right into the inbox and giving us some ideas for the show. It reminded me, if you've got things that you want to hear us talk about this offseason, you know what kind of podcast this is. It's for fans by fans. We're not going to get into the weeds of the. Listen, there's great guys. You want to go follow Dog Stats if you want some inside numbers. You want to go follow John Tweet Sports if you want somebody who just is connected to everybody and what all. But this is a podcast for fans. And so if there's things that you want to hear us talk about this offseason, we would love to hear about it. Today, though, we're doing a little way too early 2022 superlatives. We like to do this after the season. We like to give out superlatives. Most likely to succeed, most likely. The Trevi Awards littered with these superlatives.
Oh, man. Can't wait for the Trevies.
But we're going to do a little preseason, off-season version, a little prognostication. This might involve a metaphorical robe of some kind. And
when we say metaphorical, we actually mean literal that we don't put on. They're off camera because we don't want to scare.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about 3 things today. We're going to talk about Mr. Consistency, who the most consistent player is for this upcoming year, who that is, why he has shown us before, and why we project him into next year to remain Mr. Consistent. We'll come back Thursday and Friday. We'll do most explosive or most electric on Thursday. And on Friday, we'll bring Bringer of Pain in a homage back to a number meaning pain. Daniel?
33 means pain. Odell Thurman, he knows that. We all know that. Okay,
I know that.
So today the superlative is most consistent. Who will be the most consistent player on Georgia's roster? Now, there's a lot of ways that you could go with this, Clint. And so I'm curious. We're going to reveal our names. I haven't talked to you about yours. You haven't talked to me about mine. And so I'm going to let you
envelopes.
I'm going to let you go first. I'm going to let you go. The fact that you pulled out even just a piece of paper right there on command was fantastic. I'm going to let you go first, and then I'll give you mine, and then we'll come back next segment, and we'll kind of break down why we think this.
My Mr. Consistency, the way that I thought about it and the way I wanted to approach it was a guy who I have no worries about, who I have no concern about. You plug him in and you forget that he is there. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no better right tackle in college football than Warren I am the best at being who I am, Mcclendon.
Wow. Warren Mcclendon. I like it.
Mr.
I
Consistent.
like it. There's
I'm gonna
so
hit
many
you. I'm gonna
ways that
hit
you
you.
could. Yeah, I can't wait to get into and dissect. He's not a name that maybe jumps to the forefront of people's mind when they think about the Georgia football team, and maybe that factors in to what you're saying, to how you're feeling. Here's my train of thought. Okay, I'm going to walk you down the road that I walked down. I said to myself, who's the solid rock on this team? Who's the go-to guy? Maybe he's been here for a while. Maybe he's done that for a while. Maybe he's just the guy that, is he the flashiest player in the world? Maybe he's not, but maybe he's what you're getting out of this guy. And here's what I said to myself. I said, that guy is Kearis Jackson on this University of Georgia football team. Okay. I don't have to tell you, he's consistent. He's done it for now many years, going into his senior season here. I personally have some pretty high expectations for Kearis Jackson this season. I think somebody on Twitter, I can't remember who you are, or I would give you credit, was talking about the relationship between Stetson Bennett and Kearis Jackson. Yes. Seemed to have a bit of a connection last season. We'll see if that develops into something more this season. And so I was prepared to come on the podcast, Clint, and say Kearis Jackson was my Mr. Consistent, my most consistent player on Georgia's roster. But then,
you hit us a little okey doke there. You hit us with a little okey doke.
Yeah, you thought it was going to zig, but but then I said to myself, I can't in good conscience do that because there's a better Kearis Jackson already on the team.
There's a better person at being Kearis Jackson than Kearis Jackson.
I don't want to say that, but when I think about Kearis Jackson, I think of all the things he does well, and then I think, but A.D. Mitchell does all those things better than he does. And so my most consistent player for this 2022 season is going to be the go-to wide receiver on this Georgia football team, and that is Mr. A.D. Mitchell. We will talk about why when we come back, but first want to let you know about this.
BetOnline is your sportsbook experts. How do we know? Because Daniel and I love gambling. We love making money. And we love making you money. All of these things we have done in the history of Locked On Bulldogs, we have made you money to the clip of, and I'm not kidding you, 76% winning percentage on bets overall in the years we've been doing locks. Guys, we make you the money. Get back here for locks. We make ourselves money. We got a whole slush fund that Daniel's wife don't know about, and I hope she don't listen to this podcast right now because but BetOnline is the sportsbook experts that you need to go to because Daniel and I go to them. They are fast. They are reliable. They have every single bet that you need. When are we going to start taking this new golf league bets, Daniel? When is that going to start? Justin Thomas, I think, is already over there. No, we're not going to do it. Okay, we're not going to talk about it.
We're not even going to acknowledge it.
But if they do, they will have college football, NFL, basketball. Finals are happening. Get over there right now to BetOnline, your sportsbook experts, the official sportsbook of Locked On Bulldogs and Locked On Podcast.
All right, Clint, here's how I think we should break this up. Let's have you give your rationale for Warren Mcclendon in this segment. And then in segment 3, when we come back, I will give my explanation for A.D. Mitchell. So the floor is yours. And then I'd love to follow up, ask you a few things. We'll touch on some of the things that you bring up. But what makes Warren Mcclendon so consistent in your mind?
I'm going to hearken you back to 2 games, the final 2 games of the season, Daniel.
Some would call them the most important games.
The most important games. And I want to ask you just a very simple question, and it's going to start off on the left side. We're going to start on the left side of the offensive line with Jamari Sawyer, who shut down the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft, took him to the woodshed, then brought in Alabama, the supposed all-world Will Anderson, and shut him down as well. And Jamari over here playing guard, playing tackle.
I was going to say, then he kicked inside. Broderick Jones came in and he said, "Thank you, sir. I'll pick up right where you left off.
I'll rinse,
Let's
repeat.
do it again."
And during all of that time, when we had this passing, when we had Brock Bowers flexed out because he wasn't an inline tight end, when we have Eric Gilbert coming back this year, we have Big O chipping, sure, but then going out in pass patterns. Jamari Sawyer last year, his lowest pressure percentage amongst offensive tackles was Jamari at 0.6% of snaps played. Pressure.
Now tell me what that means, Clint. Tell me
what that means is that every snap that Jamari played, over all of those snaps, only 0.6% of the time Stetson back there felt pressure. Not that he was sacked, but he was pressured. Daniel.
Now you're saying 0.6 as in like 60%? It was 60%?
I'm talking there's a
it
0.
It was 6%?
No, I'm talking there's a 0. Then there's a decimal point.
Okay.
And then there's a 6.
Okay. And then there's a percent sign.
So let me tell you. So over 100 snaps, less than one of those snaps.
Okay. Less than one.
Less than one, not a whole snap, not even a full snap was played. That's number. Do you know who was number 3 last year, Daniel?
On Georgia's team?
No. College football.
In college football.
Warren Mcclendon.
Say more things.
1.5% of dropbacks. Warren Mcclendon was allowing pressure on Stetson. This is what he has done since arriving in Athens. He has started 24 straight games. He has only allowed 24 quarterback pressures in the entire time on pass protection assignments. Daniel, 24.
That's one per game. That's one per start. Clint. That's consistency is what I'm going to call that.
I'm
going to call that consistency.
There it is. Look, Warren Mcclendon, the reason that we forget, the reason that we're concentrating on Jamari, the reason that we're looking at Van Pran, the reason why all of a sudden we're talking about Tate Ratledge and the guards and who's going to – y'all, Warren Mcclendon has subtly and quietly locked down right tackle. And he has a chance, and let me be very specific with this because I don't want this to be overlooked. He has a chance to ascend to maybe the 5th offensive tackle position potentially.
I thought you were about to say 5th round, and I was about to reach through this computer screen and slap you right in the face.
He has a chance to ascend into late 1st, mid-1st round. That's what I'm here to say. When
you remember Devontae Wyatt?
He's this year's Devontae Wyatt. And if you look back at Devontae Wyatt was consistent. Warren Mcclendon does not allow sacks. He does not allow pressures. He does his assignment, and he does it well, and he does it perfect technique. He is a technician. Watching him is a joy, and watching him protect. You give me Mcclendon against anybody, I'll take my chances over the whole game. Not one-on-one drills. You might be able to sneak one past him, but over the entirety of a game, he's going to be Mr. Consistent and let Stetson do what he does best. That is my Mr. Consistent for this coming year.
I love that, Clint. And again, he's the type of guy you don't think of his name right off the bat when you think about Georgia players. And that's a good thing when you're talking about offensive linemen. You understand? Offensive linemen you don't think about them because they don't score touchdowns. Do you know what they do? They allow other people to score touchdowns. That's what an offensive lineman does. If you're thinking about an offensive lineman, it's probably because A, he just committed a false start, or B, he just got beat and gave up a sack. So the reason you never think about Warren Mcclendon is because Warren Mcclendon doesn't give you a reason to think about him because he's just out here doing his job.
That's it.
It's when people talk about the players Georgia lost from last year's team, I think Georgia fans quick to point out the players that are still around. And we like to talk about Brock Bowers, and we like to talk about Keely Ringo, and we like to talk about Jalen Carter, and there's a lot of really exciting guys that we like to talk about. But you got guys like Cedric Van Pran and Warren Mcclendon coming back to anchor this offensive line, along with Broderick Jones, who got some really significant, really meaningful snaps. All of a sudden, that's tackle, center, tackle. Those And it's not like we don't have guards
And the
like
meanest kid that we haven't mentioned at
in
Tate Rat
droves.
that's
Yeah,
coming back.
exactly. But you got those three anchors coming back on the offensive line. It
Yeah.
should give Georgia fans a lot of excitement. All right. We're going to come back. I'm going to talk about A.D. Mitchell and why I think he's going to be the most consistent weapon on Georgia's team in 2022. But first, I'm going to tell you about Built Bar. They are the tastiest protein bar on planet Earth. And we know that. Again, Clint said this about BetOnline. We know this because we use the product, and the product tastes good. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They come in a wide variety of delicious flavors, every single one of them high in protein, every single one of them low in sugar, high in fiber, keto approved, and every single one of them, from the peanut butter flavors, the chocolate flavors, the caramel flavors, the birthday cake flavors, the fruit flavors, every single one made with 100% real chocolate, and every single one is delicious. You will think you're eating a candy bar, but you will actually be eating something low in sugar, high in protein that is good for you. So throw one in your glove box, throw one in your purse, throw one in your desk drawer, throw one in wherever you need it in the middle of the day, at the beginning of the day, on your way to work. It's a great, if you didn't have time to grab breakfast, grab one of these on your way to the office. BuiltBar.com. Enter the promo code LOCKEDON15, 15% off your first order. That's BuiltBar.com, promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off your first order at Built Bar, the tastiest protein bar on planet Earth.
A.D. Mitchell is your Mr. Consistent for this coming year, the most consistent playmaker, not named Brock Bowers, but we're maybe even above Brock Bowers because we're talking consistency. So I'm very curious how you're taking that moniker in terms of the wide receiver, in terms of offense. Why is A.D. Mitchell the consistent player this coming year?
Yeah, I think it can be tricky because tomorrow, as you said, we're talking about most explosive player. And A.D. Mitchell, I don't know if I need to tell you this, has some explosive tendencies in there.
He does.
He's been known to explode a time or two. But I think even that, when you look at what he brings to the offense as a whole, the number one value that A.D. Mitchell possesses is his consistency. Now, you mentioned Brock Bowers, and obviously Brock Bowers led this team in receptions. He led this teams in every category that fathomable that's related to catching the football. I can't put him here because what he brings to the team, his number one value is not consistency. He brings something else to the team that is greater. But let me talk to you about A.D. Mitchell. A.D. Mitchell, as a freshman, had catches in 12 games.
Okay.
12 games with receptions, and 9 of those games were multiple reception games. So we're not talking about he's out there catching one slant for 4 yards and that's it. We're talking about 9 of those games he possesses multiple receptions, 426 yards, 29 receptions, an average of 14.7 per. He had 4 touchdowns, but it's really the way that he changed the offense last year in giving Stetson another reliable target. Now, was he available for the deep ball? Yes, he was. A.D. Mitchell had 8 catches last year of over 20 yards.
Love it.
In 7 different games, A.D. Mitchell had a reception of over 20 yards. Clint, what would you call that over the course of a season?
I'd call that showing up, being consistent in the manner in which it's asked of you by Todd Monken. When you take your shot, now this is important for all of you fans who just want to go out and play Hendon Hooker and Tennessee style stuff. We're never going to be that, and thank goodness.
God.
Ooh, because when A.D. Mitchell is primed and targeted and Monk draws up the play for him, he's on time, he's on pace, he's making the catch right in rhythm as he should. Scheduled tweet.
Yeah, it's over half the games Georgia played. AD Mitchell had not just a reception, but a reception of over 20 yards. He brings something to the offense consistently that very few others on Georgia's roster do. He's got the ability to be a possession receiver.
Sure.
But like Devontae Smith, a guy that I really like to compare AD Mitchell to, and I'm just going to keep saying it. I'm not going to shy away from it.
You should. The Bama fan in comments is all about it, by the way.
I think AD Mitchell reminds me of Devontae Smith. And like Devontae Smith, he can be a straight, get you a first down, get you 5 yards. It's 2nd and 11. You need a manageable 5 yards to get this thing back to 3rd and reasonable. AD Mitchell is your guy. But he's also, like Devontae Smith, a consistent weapon in the deep passing game, a la the national championship when he caught that 40-yard bomb in the end zone that changed the course of Georgia football history forever. AD Mitchell, I think, is going to be the most consistent weapon used by Stetson Bennett next year. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to get the most targets. It doesn't mean that he's going to have the most receptions. It doesn't mean that he's going to have the most touchdowns. It doesn't mean that he's going to lead the offense in anything. What it means is that you know what you're going to get out of AD Mitchell. And when he plays, he will contribute to the team. We saw plenty of guys last year, Ladd McConkey, even I'll put Kearis Jackson in this category. We saw plenty of guys last year who did good things for Georgia, but none of them did it like AD Mitchell. None of them did it from the UAB game to the national championship game the way that AD Mitchell did.
Daniel, I love it. This is fantastic. You need to come up with a new name for Kearis Jackson, by the way, because Kearis Jackson it's the artist formerly known as Kearis Jackson, because AD Mitchell
Kearis Jackson can still be Kearis Jackson. Okay. AD Mitchell is the rich man's Devontae Smith is who he is.
Oh my. Yes, sir. You love to see it. You love to see it. Hey, come back tomorrow where we will be talking about most explosive player for next year on this Georgia team. There's a lot to choose from.
I'm just going through a Rolodex of players right now that I
can't wait. Come back. We will see you guys then.
See ya.